The last combo from this short montage is likely going to be among the most optimal you can do on release. But this combo isn't as simple as just pressing buttons in the right order. And for you to understand just how cool it really is, you first need to understand a little bit of how Yixuan works. So let's very briefly break down her kit, figure out how her combos work, and then get to why that final combo is the most optimal. Before we get into it though, I should mention that this has footage gathered from the Creator Experience server. Although I might be citing some numbers here and there, they are very much subject to change, so please keep that in mind. Do check the pinned comments for any changes or corrections that may come later down the line. Yixuan has a lot of text on her skills and a lot of skills on her kit. But let's simplify things a little for this video and focus only on what's needed for the combos. Instead of energy, Yixuan makes use of adrenaline. The color's a little different, but it's functionally the same. It's a resource that's used up in skills. Her EX special, at the very least the one you get by pressing the special button, isn't actually relevant for these combos. It's called Ink Manifestation, and when doing it, she'll spend 40 adrenaline, crouch, and cover herself in a wing of ink. Let her go early and she'll do some decent damage, but if you hold it, will enhance the skill to become stronger. You don't even have to hold it for long, and you know when it's ready by a flash that will appear on Yixuan. This skill also happens to be a counter. If the enemy attacks you, Yixuan will immediately cast the enhanced version. And if you use it as a parry and time it correctly, you not only get the enhanced version, you also get some adrenaline back. After this skill, you can keep mashing the special button to go into 2 follow-up attacks. The first, Celestial Cloud Blitz Break, is a spin and slide, and you can do it without expending any resources. In fact, it's the same move as her assist follow-up, which is also called Celestial Cloud Blitz, just without the break. But it does have its own scaling, and it's considered EX special damage, so it's a fair bit stronger. And unlike the assist follow-up, if you have 20 adrenaline left, you can expend that to cast Qingming Eruption. Yixuan ascends and spreads her wings, doing some pretty decent damage. That's not the only EX special Yixuan has though. If you hold her basic attack, Yixuan will begin casting Cloud Shaper, and the longer you hold, the more damage it will do. It's also a counter, but instead of being a parry, it'll trigger Vital View when timed correctly. While channeling, if you let go, run out of adrenaline, or let 2 seconds pass, then Yixuan will follow up with Ashen Ink Becomes Shadows, a finisher explosion at the very end. It's about 20 adrenaline to begin casting, and 20 adrenaline per second during channeling, adding up to a total of 60 adrenaline. If you let go immediately, you're getting a few ticks of damage, but it's mostly just from the Ashen Ink explosion. Hold it in full though, and for the adrenaline you spend, it hits pretty hard. Both her Ink Manifestation and her Cloud Shaper starters do good damage, and both take quite a bit of time, with Ink Manifestation doing a bit more damage and taking a little longer. For the combo shown off at the start though, we only care about Cloud Shaper. This is for 3 main reasons. First, her additional ability provides 30% increased damage on Cloud Shaper and Ashen Ink, the explosion finisher, when you're hitting stunned enemies, which isn't present for the Ink Manifestation string. Second is that it's just a fair bit faster. With how tight the stun rotations are, even if you don't charge up Ink Manifestation, the few extra frames you spend on it and its follow-ups mean you may end up not getting Yixuan's ultimate to land in stun, and that would erase any damage gains you get from it. And lastly, you can end Cloud Shaper early to get the Ashen Ink explosion, so this means you can usually slot in an extra cast just before the end. So as far as our EXs are concerned, we only care about the Cloud Shaper string and stun. But you may have noticed that these combos are very resource intensive. Cloud Shaper is using up 60 adrenaline when charged, and we're often trying to fit in at least 2, possibly 3. That means we'd be spending at least 140 adrenaline in a combo, a little more if we charge the 3rd Cloud Shaper. Even with natural regeneration, this is awfully tight. But Yixuan has a lot of ways to generate adrenaline. The easiest and most straightforward is with attribute anomalies, where Yixuan will get 10 adrenaline when her Auric Ink anomaly is triggered. Her core passive can be a bit misleading, as it says it provides the adrenaline upon triggering an anomaly, but this is in the context of her Auric Ink. In practice, it only works when Yixuan triggers her Auric Ink, and not any other character or element. The second method, and one that comes in very handy for our combos, is through her additional ability, which will recover 2 adrenaline every second for 10 seconds when a squad member uses an ultimate. Thankfully, it seems MiHoYo has been listening, because this effect actually shows up as an icon on the UI. Since it functions as a buff though, it means that you can't stack it, just refresh it. And it does not apply when Yixuan uses an ultimate, only when her squad members do. It may look like this is the same buff, but don't mix up the icons. This is a different buff, which we'll cover later. There are still plenty of other methods for generating extra adrenaline. When you swap out of Yixuan via a perfect assist, she'll do a lightning strike, which generates 5 adrenaline. Her perfect dodge also gives her a boost of 5 adrenaline, with a 1-second cooldown. So if you dodge counter assist stack, you can get both of them at the same time. It may look like you don't get the boat if Yixuan performs another animation, but the boat will still land once she can move off field. Note how she gets 2 boats on the dodge counter assist, but only 1 on a standard dodge counter. But these aren't all that relevant for the combo itself, although it is very helpful at generating enough adrenaline to be maxed out before it's time for the stun. What we can do mid-combo though is get a little extra through Yixuan's basic attack, Auric Array. We aren't really using any of Yixuan's basic attack strings in the combo as there just isn't enough time. Auric Array is a little different though. If you hold dodge, you go into Veil Cloud Coalescence. It generates adrenaline a little more efficiently than regular basics. But what we're interested in is the enhanced version of this skill. If you have an Auricing point, Yixuan will execute Auric Array. It looks very similar, but shadow clones spawn around her and the finisher changes to Qingming Eruption. It's almost the same as the one from her EX, but instead it's a basic attack and scales with its level. What's important though aren't the numbers on it, but the fact it recovers 7 adrenaline per second for up to 3 seconds, meaning 21 adrenaline total. We don't have the time to get the full 21 adrenaline, so it will be interrupted with a chain attack. But the little bonus it provides is pretty helpful, so you can use it to get an adrenaline boost to sustain the Cloud Shapers. The big thing is, if you interrupt Auric Array, although you stop getting the extra adrenaline, the field lingers. So you may not be getting the finisher or all of its resources, but the full damage from the field will still go through, making it really effective for damage. But how do we get an Auric ink point to use Auric Array? Whenever Yixuan spends adrenaline, she'll gain technique points, which is indicated by her unique meter. When that's capped out, she gets access to a unique ultimate, Endless Talisman Suppression. I say unique because this ultimate doesn't consume any decibels. It also takes priority over her Despo ultimate, Qingming Skyshade. Meaning, if Yixuan has both 3000 decibels and is capped in technique points, she'll use Endless Talisman Suppression first. You can even see how her ultimate icon changes. Whenever Endless Talisman Suppression is used, she'll stock an Auric point, seen by the yin-yang icon on her meter turning orange. It's capped at 1, so you can't build up multiple, but we barely have time to fit 1 Auric Array and stun anyways, so that's no issue. Ultimates have one extra bonus though, which is that any ultimate used by Yixuan will grant her a buff that increases her crit damage by 40% for 15 seconds. The icon I mentioned wasn't the adrenaline regen buff from before, that's what it represented. With that, we should have all the knowledge we need to go through how Yixuan's standard bread and butter combo works. The combo begins before the stun state. When you hit around 90 or so days on the bar, use the Endless Talisman Suppression ultimate. This will build a bit of days, give us an Auricing point for Auric Array, and most importantly, provide a 40% crit damage buff that Yixuan gets from casting ultimates. From there, go straight into Cloud Shaper. Since all of its hits are considered finishing attacks, that means the moment the bar hits 100, it'll turn rainbow and initiate the stun state. You want to channel it in full until Ashen Ink lands, then hold dodge to use up the Auric Ink point and start Auric Array. After which, you can swap to another agent who will trigger a chain attack. How long you wait is up to you. If you need a bit more adrenaline, hold a little longer. If not, then you can shorten it and get more time for damage later. I should call out that you will want manual chain for these combos. Ashen Ink is considered a heavy attack, so you won't be able to go from it into Auric Array without it, as Yixuan will trigger the chain prematurely. But since all we're doing is holding basic for Cloud Shaper, the input requirements are very simple. You can still do combos with auto chain, just skip Auric Array and swap out of Yixuan before Ashen Ink lands. Even if it does give you some extra time at the end, missing out on both its damage and adrenaline regeneration does sting a little. Regardless of how you handle this, we at the very least want Yixuan to be the one executing a chain attack. In this case, I use Pan's Ultima to get some damage in, as it's got pretty fast activation. But you can also just rely on quick assists for it, if you have Astra. And if not, any fast heavy attack, like a special or EX, will do. After Yixuan's chain, you cancel, and then go into another Cloud Shaper. Ideally, you want to hold this for as long as you can, but casting it in its entirety isn't needed. This is because you don't really get to land 3 Cloud Shapers in full within the stun period. The third Cloud Shaper at the very end will always be a little short. So whatever time you lose by not channeling it fully on this one, is time you gain on channeling the third, so it's not too big a deal. You're also not really channeling it in full, because we're going to swap cancel out of this. We want Yixuan to finish with Ashen Ink just as we trigger a second chain to save time. She'll do this automatically on swap out. So all you need to do is go to another character, pop the chain, then back to Yixuan while mashing ultimate to get it out as soon as her chain attack ends. If you time things right, you should have had the crit damage buff from the first ultimate last for the entirety of the stun up until the second ultimate. And since her crit damage buff refreshes on any ultimate cast, you have it up again for all of its damage, as well as for one last Cloud Shaper to finish things off. And that's really the shell that most Yixuan combos will work with. The second combo shown off at the start is one where, instead of using the endless Talisman suppression ultimate before the stun, we're using it during the stun. After spending so much adrenaline in the first stun period, you're going to be coming out of it nearly capped out on technique points. So instead of overcapping them, it's better to just use another ultimate as soon as it comes up, then begin building adrenaline and points again in preparation for the second stun. So fights typically line up in such a way that you won't quite have enough technique points to ultimate before the stun begins, but you will build it halfway during the combo. From there, it's exactly the same as the first combo. The only difference is that after the second Yixuan chain attack, we use the two ultimates back to back and give up on a third Cloud Shaper. Sadly, even if we have the endless Talisman suppression ultimate up early, we can only use it after all chains have been used up, as otherwise we won't be able to double chain on Yixuan. This is a bit of an issue, as whether you do the standard combo with the ultimate before stun or the one with it during stun, both end up being more or less the same damage, and this is because of the ultimate being so late, we don't really get any crit damage bonuses. Since we use ultimates back to back, they're both just refreshing the buff at the same time. So although we're doing a lot more damage with the instant ultimate, we're also missing out on 40% crit damage for most of it, so it evens out. But if you've got the skill, then instant ultimates may undisputably be the optimal route. As you play around with Yixuan, you notice that Cloud Shaper has really long range. It hits from crazy far, and that seems an awful lot like a range skill. You know how some characters, like Harumasa, can use the heavy attack portion of his EX to trigger a chain attack halfway through his ultimate animation? Well, how Yixuan can do the same, by getting her EX to land right as she begins her ultimate? Turns out that the same is true for Yixuan. With the right timing, if you initiate her endless Talisman suppression ultimate just before Ashen Ink lands, the finisher from Cloud Shaper, you can get a chain prompt just as she comes out of the ultimate cutscene. This doesn't let us avoid triggering chains on Yixuan, so we do lose out on the ability to double chain with her. But because we're now no longer animation locked, that means we can go into Astra chain and then use her ultimate. So we still get Yixuan's chain anyways through Astra's ultimate quick assist. It's very similar routing to the previous ones. Open with Cloud Shaper, hold it in full, then go into Auric Array and interrupt it with a chain. Then go into another Cloud Shaper, but instead of swapping out of it, time the ultimate cast so that it happens just as the explosion begins. With this chain prompt, we go to Astra, use her ultimate, then quick assist chain back to Yixuan for one more ultimate and just about sneak in a Cloud Shaper into Ashen Ink at the very end. And there you have it. It's actually not that difficult to pull off. Harumasa and Yixuan both are dependent on the spacing between them and the enemy, since you need to account for their projectile's travel time. But because Cloud Shaper is localized to the enemy, it's just a matter of timing, not timing and positioning. Because you can force the explosion just by letting go, it's okay to end it a tad bit early and give yourself some control over the timing. You make up any lost time on the third Cloud Shaper anyways. You do need to let the explosion happen though, as doing it too early and Yixuan will stop only at Cloud Shaper and not initiate Ashen Ink, meaning no heavy attack to trigger the chain and a big damage loss from lacking that finisher. Do it too late though and it triggers before exiting the ultimate cutscene, as the time stop on it is ever so slightly delayed. You know you got it right if you get it just after the cross flash effect appears. Unfortunately, it only works on the endless Talisman suppression ultimate. This isn't because there's anything broken with her other ultimate, it's just that she sits so damn long in the cutscene that the orb despawns before Yixuan can exit it. Not a big deal though, as a single cancel is all we need to get the most value out of Yixuan. I should point out that you don't need perfect execution for these, and that we're not even scratching the surface on potential optimizations. Depending on how high the stun bar is when you start the combo, some hits won't be landing in the stun period, so we'll be missing out on the 30% damage passive. Since you want to fully channel that first Cloud Shaper, it's going to cost 60 adrenaline. So if you're not very close to 100 days, Ink Manifestation can end up being a slightly better opener, especially as you can swap cancel early out of the Qingming Eruption finisher. But of course, doing that now means you need to shift Auric Array to after Yixuan's first chain, so you won't be able to use the ultimate animation cancel unless you skip Auric Array altogether. So you will want to reserve that for your first stun combo. But even doing that may still not be ideal, because there's one more variant that may be the most optimal stun combo, and that's getting both the ultimate animation cancel and double Auric Arrays in stun. This combo does have pretty tight execution. It's, again, almost the same routing as the others, but this time, instead of fully channeling Cloud Shaper, we want Ashen Ink to pop just as the stun begins. This is because every last frame we save is critical. As we're not channeling it fully though, this means that we're lacking in technique points for endless Talisman suppression, so we really do need to channel the second Cloud Shaper for as long as we can to get it maxed out. Once we have enough for it, it's time for the ultimate animation cancel, Astra Chain, and Astra's ultimate into Yixuan Chain. But instead of going straight into Qingming Skyshade, we're sneaking in one more Auric array in the stun period and interrupting it with the ultimate cast. And since we cut our Cloud Shaper short at the very start, it means we can still get the third and final Ashen Ink explosion before the stun ends. This genuinely has some difficulty to its execution. First, because you're not just holding basic on its entirety or swap cancelling out of Yixuan, manual chain inputs matter. If you let go of basic early, you get a chain before you can go into the first Auric array. And if you hold special, Yixuan will prioritize that over the dodge input, so the combo gets messed up. Which means you need to then hold basic, let go, and immediately hold it again for when Ashen Ink lands, and then go into Auric array. And you do have to let go and hold it again fast. If you do it too slow, Yixuan will interpret that as another Cloud Shaper input, which messes up the combo. But the real execution check comes at the very end. This is because you can't buffer Auric array out of chain. If you hold the dodge button while Yixuan performs a chain, nothing will happen. So you need to wait until she's just about done with her chain to start Auric array. Still, this combo is not over yet. You're practically guaranteed to get Auric array to cast on the opener, as between the delay time freeze on ultimate cutscenes and the chain select menu, there's plenty of time for Yixuan to activate it. But ultimate will interrupt her immediately. And if you interrupt Auric array before the field has manifested, then you use up the Auric ink point and get nothing for it. You can tell it's been activated too early when the shadow clones don't appear, so be careful about using ultimate too early. You're right though, and you not only get what's arguably Yixuan's most optimal combo, but a really cool looking setup as well. There are also some secret source texts that harken back to the old Evelyn combos, but let's leave those for release. But if you can't wait for that and are eager to get right into more Yixuan content, I'd recommend checking out I Am Ravenous' XXL guide, as it's without a doubt the most comprehensive coverage of this character we have. And if you want to stay in the loop for when I drop more videos, or are just interested in more niche character texts and breakdowns of fundamental game mechanics, then do like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. I've got more videos coming. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.